One mushroom that stands out like a diamond in the rough is the oyster mushroom or Pleurotus ostreatus, which we believe has the potential to save the whole dang world. How could a single mushroom species save the world? You must think we sound crazy, but some of the world's best scientists like Paul Stamets and the National Institute of Health agree. Let us explain. If you've been following the news, you've probably heard about the emergence and newfound popularity of mushrooms. Whether it be psychedelic, culinary, or medicinal, mushrooms are gaining enormous steam for their unprecedented potential. Before delving into the powers of the oyster mushroom, let's first take a look at the main issues in the world that even need solving to begin with. In our opinion, and based on Quinnipiac's in-depth surveys, the two biggest problems in the world are food security, as well as the quality of that food as it relates to human health. The other issue is habitat loss coupled with large-scale environmental destruction. So, what is the oyster mushroom? The oyster mushroom is an aggressive, saprophytic fungus that has gained a reputation for good taste, medicinal properties, and an ability to clean up the environment. Being a saprophyte means that you break down dead and decaying matter as your fuel source, using a constellation of enzymes to decompose material into digestible matter. The oyster mushroom is one of the more aggressive saprophytes in the entire kingdom of fungi, able to decompose both soft organic matter and tough woody compounds like lignin. Not only is it good at decomposition, but it is a beautiful mushroom that puts on a spectacular display of growth. The oyster mushroom has a native range around most of the world and can be found pretty commonly in grocery stores across Asia and North America. Whereas 10 years ago you may not have seen it in your local Kroger or Whole Foods, oyster mushrooms are stocked to the brim in the present day. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Why would some of the best minds in the world be saying that this humble little mushroom can do so much to aid our biggest issues? To begin with, oyster mushrooms offer a new, easy-to-grow, and cost-effective method of supplying food to the world. In a world where fast food is cheaper than organic produce, and where starvation is widespread, we desperately need a healthy source of food that can be produced at scale without the use of massive machinery, pesticides, and soil vacant of microbial nutrition. Oyster mushrooms offer that solution on both a small and large scale. We saw during COVID that our supply chains regarding food are very fragile, and one international hiccup can lead to widespread shortages across the globe. In response, many folks turn to growing their own food, such as oyster mushrooms. This likely has to do with the fact that they are easy to grow, delicious, and extremely nutritious, boasting a repertoire of proteins, vitamins, and immune-supporting nutrients. Growing oyster mushrooms is actionable and provides an opportunity for anyone to have a source of healthy food at home, decreasing their reliance on the broken food systems of our time. To grow oyster mushrooms, the process is simple. You simply need to buy some oyster mushroom spawn from companies like Eden Shrooms, layer it in it with a pasteurized substrate like straw, let the mycelium colonize the straw, and then introduce the whole thing to fresh air and high humidity. By following those very basic steps, you're likely to see multiple flushes of mushrooms in just a few weeks. You can sauté them, grill them, mix them with a stir-fry, or batter and fry them if you don't mind the calories. Sure, oyster mushrooms can offer us a healthy food source that we can manage ourselves, but how do they help to feed the world? Like we mentioned, growing oyster mushrooms is easy, and this is true on the industrial scale as well. Industrial growers like Smallhold in New York City, farms of all sizes, and food co-ops are realizing that they can grow oyster mushrooms in large quantities with simple, repeatable methods that don't require much more than genetic material like oyster mushroom spores or tissue, straw, plastic bags, and a sterile location. In places like Kerala, India, where much of the population is vegetarian, oyster mushrooms are being grown as a sustainable source of protein, creating economic opportunity in the meantime. In the USA, consumers now have a robust selection of oyster mushrooms that can elevate both the taste and nutritional benefit of every meal. Oyster mushrooms are also being used to create myco-meats, or meat alternatives made by mushrooms. While we love burgers and chicken as much as the next guy, a fried oyster mushroom sandwich truly hits the spot and tastes much better than the Beyond Meats made of soy and other ingredients that require complex supply chains and ingredients from all over the world. We now know how oyster mushrooms can aid our global food production, but how the heck can they help save the environment? This is where the magic of the fungal kingdom becomes relevant. As we mentioned, oyster mushrooms have the ability to aggressively decompose organic matter, but the extent of which it can do so may surprise you. For example, oyster mushrooms have the ability to decompose oil, taking it from the ground and digesting it. In the documentary Fantastic Fungi, mycologist Paul Stamets runs us through an experiment where he treats an oil-related waste site with oyster mushroom spores. He litters the site with spores, having no idea what to expect, and covers the waste site with a tarp. A few months later, he comes back to find that not only is the oil gone, but there are some vigorous mushrooms growing from where the spores were sprinkled. Fast forward a few more weeks, and bugs have come to eat the mushrooms, which invited birds, who dropped seeds into the site, which grew into new plants. Just by simply inoculating the waste site with spores, Paul was able to turn a polluted mess into a haven for biodiversity. Another experiment from the University of California system attempted to put up bunkers of oyster mushrooms to stop the flow of wood, waste, and trash from a river into the Pacific Ocean. What they found is that the mushrooms worked like a natural filter, digesting huge portions of organic matter that passed through it. As a result, the ocean was not further polluted and local divisions could manage the waste more easily. Oyster mushrooms have the ability to clean up waste sites, absorb heavy metals from the ground, filter out toxins from the water, and provide us with a sustainable, eco-friendly source of food. They can remediate soils, create more fertile grounds for other agricultural products, or even invite worms and microbes to your home garden, cycling the soil and improving your plants. The miracle of oyster mushrooms does not stop there. They have an ability to decompose hard woods like no other, but so what? Well, remember those wildfires in British Columbia, Canada? Those were created because of irresponsible logging practices that involved cutting down native trees and replacing them with rows that were planted too close to one another, drying out the entire forest and making it flammable as can be. As a result, land managers are beginning to thin out forests, cut down trees, and clear hazardous areas completely. Where does all of the wood go? Sometimes it is transported out and burned. Other times it is left lying on the forest floor or left to decompose, which can take almost 100 years. Oyster mushrooms present a solution. By inoculating woods with this aggressive fungus, decomposition rates are sped up drastically, eliminating the need for large-scale burns while eliminating the risk of fires in the forests themselves. So, how can you use oyster mushrooms today in order to help save the world? You can start by growing your own oyster mushrooms or buying their spores online. With those basic materials, you have the ability to inoculate tree stumps or logs, grow your own food, clean up waste in your local area, and replenish soils on your property or garden. Heck, you can even inject spores into a dog turd on a hiking trail, eliminating a vector of toxicity from the environment. Next time you go to the grocery store, check out the mushroom section to see if they have oysters. When you see them sitting there in a box, we hope you view them with a new level of appreciation. Do you have any novel uses or opinions on oyster mushrooms? Leave your comments on our page and contribute to the conversation. Thank you for watching, and let's master our mycology together.